You're live.
Hey, I got a good friend today, Kareem, joining me all the way from Baltimore. My
Peace.
friend, my friend from the Yo.
Yeah.
Uh,
You
so
already know, yeah.
exactly. I can ask him to say hot dog or two, and you know where he is from. But that is my
Yeah.
man from the other side.
You know
And
how we
for
do.
how would you say?
You know how we do with us too.
Exactly. Exactly. For some of you guys who don't know, I spent some time at University of Baltimore, and that's where I met Kareem.
Mhm.
Kareem, he's a good brother. I'm sure he'll tell you more about himself. He does a lot within his city, and I definitely thought it was about time to have you on, brother.
Oh man,
So
I appreciate you having me.
yeah, so for the people who don't know about you, tell them about yourself.
So just a little bit about me. Again, my name is Kareem Amin. I'm from Baltimore. Definitely spent most of my time in West Baltimore, though
Okay.
I've lived all around the city, East and West. I do a lot of work in the 1-7. I'm the executive director of an organization called Voices of 21217. We're a youth-led arts advocacy organization where we teach youth how to preserve their stories through photography, film, and creative writing. Some of our work actually that we have done has been featured at a pop-up arts event actually at the Smithsonian last December. So our work has been featured at the Smithsonian Portrait Museum, and then also at Coppin State University at the No Boundaries Youth Organizers event that happened in April of this year. That's a large event. Youth from all over Baltimore come out. Youth advocates, probably future politicians, future leaders come out and just talk about issues in Baltimore. The mayor was there. We had other dignitaries like Senate. We had different senators that came out, and all folks and all sorts of people that represented Baltimore. And they got to actually see a video that our youth produced, and the video was focused on accountability and policing in Baltimore. And this was something that they produced, that they sat down, talked about their stories. One of the youth that was on there was actually Corinne Gaines' cousin. So it was a really interesting story just hearing her talking about policing
Ah,
and
okay.
things like that, man. So the work that I've been getting into has been really, brother, over the last couple of years, we're getting really heavy, man, really heavy. So my bad for going in like that, man, but it's just been a lot. And yeah, it's great to catch up with you.
No, I mean, I appreciate you giving, the people some context of, who I'm speaking to. And, Kareem, for, some people who don't know, you were also in the media aspect, right? Like, I know
Mhm.
that I visited one of the studios you work with or you guys own or something like that. So, tell us a little bit about that aspect. I know you talked about your advocacy and your activist aspect. But tell us a little bit about your media and what you
I
look to
would
do
love
in
to.
media.
My man, I appreciate it. I love to talk to you about the arts because arts is really at the very foundation of the work that I do. And we have an organization called Iron Crown Productions, where it's a group of brothers that's brought their companies together to start to produce films, content that really speaks to people really from the area, from our community, and really showing the nuances in black people. So we actually just launched Stream DMV. So I got my t-shirt on. Hold on, let me go to the right way. Stream DMV
Oh,
right
you
here.
gotta give me one. I ain't even
Yep, I
know.
gotta get you a
Okay.
t-shirt. So Stream DMV is a site that just got launched recently. My brother is the executive of that, Asim Amin, and the team over there, Iron Crown. And so what we do is we work with artists, producers, directors from all around the DMV, and they actually submit their work to Stream DMV. And the great thing about Stream DMV is that a lot of other streaming services, you may think just because your things are being shown that you're making a lot of money on the dollar, but sometimes people are making literally pennies on the dollar being on some of these other streaming sites. But this is a black-owned streaming site that when you come on, that you get a large percentage of the streaming that we get. So we really share with the artists because we're really there to promote and to push artists because
That's
artists are the ones.
crucial. That's crucial.
Absolutely.
That's like something like Title, right? With Jay-Z and them pushing the music platform, and the fact that the artists get to keep a lot more of their earnings, right?
Exactly.
Like so. So no, I
Exactly.
mean that's huge, and you know I've only been to the studio once, but I'm sure you guys have continued updating and expanding. So I definitely can't wait to come back.
Please do. Please do. We have a couple of things up. Like I said, we have Stream DMV. Please come out. Please support Stream DMV. But we also have things on YouTube if you want to watch Black Therapy.
Okay,
Also, we're going to be pushing some documentaries that we're working on as well. So we're doing our own content, and then we also do documentary. We're doing comedy, the comedy series on there, things like that. So we're really trying to reach out to a large audience, and things like that. So yes, please check us out, Stream DMV.
I got you. And
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
remember when I was there last, but it was probably was it in 21?
I think it was 21. It was 21.
Okay, because I know I was recording a podcast over there. I think it was. I don't remember what it was for exactly, but I'm pretty sure it had something to do with cannabis.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
it did.
so you know, rightfully so. You know, I was coined by one of your fellow Baltimoreans, Donnie Glover, as the cannabis councilman.
That's
So
what that's what I've heard. I'm in full support of it, bro. You know, um, I love the way that you're approaching it and just being upfront with it because unfortunately cannabis, as we know in our community, has just devastated our communities at times with people getting locked up for small quantities, or even quantities that now people are making millions of dollars off of, every year. And so thank you. We do need a cannabis councilman. Like, yeah, so basically I'm really in support of a lot of the things that Martin is standing for, especially being a cannabis cannabis councilman. I think just being just having somebody that's talking about cannabis in a way that is more intelligent, um, more thoughtful, nuanced. Because a lot of times when people are having those conversations, they're just looking at it as just a drug that people are just taking every day just to have a good time. But really, it's something that can really be healthy. It's something that it can impact your immune system in positive ways if people would do research. Of course, smoking itself has its own issues within that, but cannabis itself is actually a good thing. It's a healing thing. I know it's something that myself I believe in. The use of cannabis because I think it's important to use it like anything else, use it in a responsible way. But I'm a person that has dealt with a lot of different health issues at times. In general, I have really good health, but I've dealt with the early onset of arthritis, and it really impacted me for a long time and for many years. And so, it's something that actually helped me out through pain management and things like that, especially when you use responsible. And so I think that it's important to know that it's not just something that people are just doing, just to be doing. I think also folks that have mental health challenges, I know that's something I really try to advocate for, getting therapy and things like that. And so sometimes cannabis oil, different other cannabis products, and the bud itself is really just something that can help people with a lot of mental health challenges and a lot of mental health issues, people dealing with depression. We know after um, COVID, everyone's dealt with some sort of mental health issue. Um, I've had members of my family that have been challenged with it, with mental health, and they're just dealing with everyday, you know, life. We all deal with it. We all need to go to therapy and things like that. But I think things like cannabis is very helpful um, for our community if used responsibly. Also, I think legally, we need to start to address a lot of these issues around individuals that are still locked up and are still incarcerated because they were arrested for cannabis use. And so I think that's important as well to start to try to get some individuals that are incarcerated now because of things now that are legal that people are making millions of dollars off every day. We need to start to get some of those brothers and sisters free. I think that's another issue that's around cannabis, and I hope that, as they say, as the cannabis councilman, you could definitely help to address because there's a lot of issues around that that impacts our community, and it needs to be addressed in a fair manner. Absolutely.
the thing I was gonna ask you was, do you feel as though the city, I mean not the city, the state we're going to do right by, people of color this time around. As far as we know, the restorative justice piece is going to be, heavy on the mind. Of course, it's something that I'm going to mention, like no incarceration should happen with legalization. And people, of course, that, are incarcerated should be released,
Mm-hmm.
for cannabis related offenses. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about from a business perspective, because I think
Mm-hmm.
that that's one of the things that, will create generational wealth and, will allow a lot of opportunities for people of color, women owned businesses, veteran owned businesses. So,
Mm-hmm.
what is your thought process? Are we going to do right by black and brown people?
Man, I don't know. I think we have some incredible people that are down there that really support us. I think we need more folks like you, Martin. Honestly, to support. I know we got some great senators down there, like Senator Hayes and things like that.
Senator Carter, you got to mention Senator Carter. Throw her. You got those, Auntie Carter out there.
Okay, definitely got to throw out there as well. And we got some dope people. Got anybody else we got to throw out there?
Well,
We got
you can't forget McCray. We got
yes,
some good
yes,
folks.
yes. We got to definitely give it to McCray. No, good dude.
Yeah,
Yep.
we got a lot of good folks. We got a lot of good
Yeah,
folks.
we definitely good folks. I just wanted to shout out one or two before I got up out of here because I think we have folks down there that really support us in many different ways. But I would say as far as the legalization piece, that's going to be important, especially not candidates, but elected officials that are from our communities to support making sure that we are resisting the incarceration and the mass incarceration of individuals based on cannabis arrests. We definitely
Yes.
need that support. We need to also, like you said, in regards to business, we have a lot of land that's available that's black owned that are in black communities, and in a responsible way, we could have community farms that could grow certain things, and that's ways to bring business. And I know that people may say that's a radical idea, but why not just do it right there? Teach people all these different skills,
That don't seem radical to me.
you know what I mean?
I think you've been listening because one of the things that I always talk about is like the community farms and the thought is a future farmers program, right? So like as this industry continues to boom, we know that agriculture is going to be a big part of the industry, right? So we know that they're going to need farmers.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And the thought is like I've seen where a lot of the dispensaries are, where a lot of not a lot of where a lot of the grows are in the state of Maryland, and they happen to be in the Eastern Shore and the Western Shore. And a lot of people say because of pricing, and I'm sure pricing goes into that, but they also have like the infrastructure. A lot of rural farmland. I think personally we could have more. Like we said in the city, and especially in like southern Maryland, southern Prince George's, where there is a lot of land.
Exactly.
Right, like so we could have these future farmers, right? Like not every kid wants to necessarily go to get a secondary degree, higher education, and nor do they want to work at McDonald's, right? Like so, let's present them opportunities, in an industry that might be exciting for them, right? So you don't have to start them off growing, of course, THC flower. You can start them off growing hemp or just learning how to grow their own food. Every person should learn how to grow their own food.
That's
and sustain themselves.
That's critically important, especially now with pricing going everywhere and anywhere. There's a lot of issues with gas, the price of gas, things like that. So we need to make sure we have more jobs that are closer to where people actually live at. That you said, are beneficial. Like these different farming jobs and things like that, and also dispensaries. Like I'm saying, dispensaries are literally popping up everywhere. Like it doesn't matter where you're at in Maryland, I see them. And we need to have more in our communities that are black owned. Why do we have to continue to be criminalized for it while others are prospering from it?
A lot of times we go see these dispensaries out of our neighborhoods, right? Like
exactly.
A lot of times
I've only seen maybe one or two that are in majority, I would say, black neighborhoods that in Baltimore. The majority are not in those neighborhoods, and so we need to and also to stamp down on some of this violence and other things like that. We need to start to have more dispensaries. I think also within our community.
Yeah. I mean, but also like when you talk about the dispensaries, right? Like, and we talk about opportunities. I will say that I think the biggest, cause of like violence, you know, is like poverty. It's like poverty and like, you know, economic instability, right? Like, and you know, I think that Gary Chambers said it best. Like, we shouldn't look at marijuana or cannabis as a gateway, but as a gateway drug, but like a gateway to opportunity.
Right.
Like, you know, like where can these tax dollars be spent? What programs can we put in place to teach, you know, students about sustainable farming, and you know, the different uses of hemp, right? Like 3,500 uses, you know. So that's the one thing that I look at, because when I look at Baltimore and I just walk around, sometimes I don't see opportunity like always readily available, you know, for some of these individuals, right? Like,
well, I think it's important for us to start to also look at institutions that have been in our neighborhoods for a long time and how we can reimagine them. You know, like, there are opportunities now in Baltimore for the markets. Like, we have Baltimore Public Markets, you know, and doing some work with them to try to help to redevelop those markets. And we need to start to look at those spaces like as food aggregators, and start to look at our institutions that we haven't relied on for a long time and start to say, hey, can we reimagine what those things look like? You know, our schools, start to reimagine the schools. Is it just, you know, a place where kids are going to learn and things like that? Or should we, like other spaces here, like we have the Green School and other things, should we have farms at almost all the schools, and we can address, you know, fresh food distributions, and also kids getting more lunches and things like that? You feel me? Like, we got to start to reimagine these spaces that we have, and like, what can we do to help people out in a different way? And not every school is going to be like that, but I think having that, you know what I mean, having that thought process or the ability to be able to reimagine these institutions is important.
Well, I'll tell you from my understanding, a lot of the schools, like in like Frederick County, you know, a lot of them have these like programs, you know, where they have like farms at the school or nearby that they go and they eat the vegetables from the farm. You know, this is something that we need, you know, right there in Baltimore City, right? Like, when we talk about the food desert, you know, I'm sure that there's still food deserts, you know, and lack of access to healthy food. So, you know, that is huge that you bring that up. That's huge that you bring that up.
No, I appreciate it, man. And I think that's important all around, like for our physical health, our mental health, the health of the environment, is just starting to bring these things back. And other cities have done it. Like, I know Detroit has some great examples of, you know, community farming that they've done and things like that. So it can really be done, man. And we got to just start to relook at these different institutions. So that's why I'm glad we have you as a cannabis councilman to start to look at things differently, and approach things differently for the future. Yes, sir.
We're gonna have a conference soon too. We're gonna have I think it's gonna be like the first annual BlackUSA.news cannabis conference. So we definitely got to participate in that. But one of the things I wanted to ask you is, what did you say, Kareem?
No, I said, when do you plan on having it?
I think it's set for the fall, but I'll definitely let you know, you know, closer to the date. And
please do.
Hey, I'll try to even get you involved, right? Like, you know,
that'll be dope.
Some capacity, maybe a panelist or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would love
that.
Well,
Kareem, so as a Baltimorean, and I'm talking to a candidate for governor next. Right, so he's going to be on the same episode as you, and as most of the governor candidates, a lot of them have had a strong focus on Baltimore City, right? Like, that's not something you aren't used to, but I guess it's a two-part question. One, do you have a dog in the race, at least at this point? And then two, you know, how do you feel about you know, the different messages about the way that they'll address crime in Baltimore? And well, I guess three part. And what do you think, as a Baltimore resident, is feasible and would you suggest? So it's like, one, you got a dog in the race. Two, how do you feel about some of the positions or statements about how they'll address the crime in Baltimore City? And then three, how do you feel as a resident crime and can actually be addressed, and reduced?
Great questions. So I would say the first thing is that I would say that I don't necessarily have a dog in the race quite yet. I will say that I do like the messaging of Wes Moore. I'm definitely leaning towards him. A lot of great things he's done.
Okay,
Um,
Wes.
I like some of the things that Rushern is doing. I know that you're going to be talking to him a little bit. So I mean, I definitely like some
Yes,
things that
yes.
he's doing. I appreciated his marketing that he said he would like for his office to be in Baltimore to address the issues in Baltimore, because I think that is that I would like to
I
see
think
that.
he's one of two, right? I think he's one of. So him and Perez said that, right?
Yeah,
I
they
think
would
he's
want
one
to
of
be
two.
in Baltimore, which is key because the current governor has not had a good relationship with Baltimore at all, and has been very critical of Baltimore, and really I don't think has been as helpful to Baltimore that he could have been. Definitely. And so I really would like somebody that would give love to Baltimore. Not that we're the center piece, but we're an important piece. I think that's been really the stepchild, honestly. So I would like to see whatever candidate enter the race have a real concern and love for Baltimore. I want somebody that's going to try to reimagine Baltimore as well. So be open to. It's a lot of people doing great work. I know I'm working with a lot of folks over in the Black Arts District, people from University of Maryland, people with the markets. Like, it's so many different people that are doing amazing work in West Baltimore. Organizations like Be More Empowered, other places and other spaces that
Okay.
are doing great work, but they're not being highlighted. All that's being highlighted is the negativity. And there's so many people that are doing
So
great work
true.
and reimagining their work. Those people need to get shine on a whole lot more. And so that's something I would like to see, and get support as well. Um, and so that's something that I would like the next governor to be. And then what was the last question that you had? I want to make sure I hit all of them.
So it was the dog in the fight, feelings on some of their statements of violence, and then what you believe can be done or addressed as a resident, because a lot of these people aren't residents and they're just they have their suggestions.
I would say, as a resident of Baltimore, focus on the folks that are really trying to improve things. The people that are doing negative things, they're getting a lot of focus. They're getting a lot of attention all around. They're getting plenty. Let's start to focus on reimagining how we're addressing these issues. You can't address violence with violence. Like, you can't over police something and force someone to stop being violent. Like, you gotta offer different, more peaceful means to it, more conflict management skills. We gotta learn how to start to teach that more, not only in schools but on the street and exercising. Even in our communities. And so I think that as a resident, we got to start to reimagine the institutions, but also how we're addressing these issues as well within our communities with some strength, but not with being overbearing, you know, um, and providing resources to people on the street. Just don't try to clean up streets by locking everyone up, but go out there every day consistently and provide these resources. So as a resident, those are some things that I would love to see, and focus on the arts. It's a lot of culture in Baltimore. So in order to shift the culture, we got to also have focus on art and artists. And I know you, as a person that supports art all the time, myself,
Well,
I'm an
you know
art.
I love the poetry, but I always support. Definitely gonna be a supporter of the art all the time.
With the one with
Got you,
sprinkles?
man.
Yes, and
Because
and
yeah,
I,
go ahead, bro.
no, I mean, I think one of the key highlights that you pointed out was that, like, there's so much beauty in Baltimore, right?
Yes.
Like, the only thing that we hear about a lot of time on the media is what they want to tell you negatively, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, like, I will tell you, being a student at UB, I would a lot of times just walk the streets, look at the different murals, look at the flower gardens, with the brownstone houses. So it was a lot of culture, and
A lot of culture.
a lot of that you can't put in a news clip,
You
right?
can't.
Like, so,
You can't. You have great
but
people.
and I'm
Yeah,
glad you
go ahead.
brought up over policing. I'm glad you brought up
Yeah,
that too.
yeah. And it happens, and the thing is, it's wild, but sometimes over policing is not even on the individual officers that's on the street. They just doing what they're being told to do. But if you reimagine what their purpose is and start to support, like, violence interrupter organizations, and start to look at conflict management organizations like Peace Team and Sons of Phoenix and things like that are here, that's important. You know, like start to reimagine how we're addressing these issues. I
I
think
agree.
that's it. Thank you, bro. Thank
I,
you.
I completely agree. And Kareem, of course, I don't want to spend too long. I know that you got a long day ahead of you, excuse me for being in the car. But like I said earlier, if you didn't know, I'm on the go, and
All
I
the
prefer to
time.
be busy than not. But
Yes.
one of the questions I wanted to ask you was very simple: couple, Pepsi or Coke?
Oh, Pepsi.
Okay. Favorite superhero?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm gonna just shout my man out, Black Panther. I gotta shout out Chadwick.
All right. What book are you recommending for me this summer?
Oh, We Speak for Ourselves by D. Watkins.
Okay. I like that. Can you could send me a note, a text? I like that.
We'll do. Yep, We Speak for
Okay.
Ourselves with D. Watkins. That's my guy, man. He's a good, excellent, amazing writer from Baltimore.
Uh huh.
Just came out with another book recently. So he was one of the writers on We Own the Street. So yeah, great writer from Baltimore.
We'll tell people how they can stay connected with you, brother, and I'm sure they will hit you up.
Yes,
This is
absolutely.
a bright
So
man. He's going places.
yes. So so you can reach me at voicesof21217.org. That's our website. You can see some of our photos, see some of our video, our featured films and things like that are on there. You can also reach me at
Okay.
voicesof21217 on Instagram, Facebook, things like that. So I'm definitely accessible and really use Instagram a lot. And yeah, man, just keep in touch with me also through Martin. He can definitely connect
Yes,
you. So
sir. I'm sure I'll get you out the
yes.
Laurel soon, man. I appreciate you,
Please do.
and
I love my PK folks,
we need to get up soon, man.
Yep.
It's been too long.
Absolutely.
It's been too long.
It's definitely been
We're
too
in
long, man.
solidarity, my friend.
Yes, love.
Yes, peace. I'll talk to you soon.
Peace. Have a good one.
Later. So that was Kareem. We got another guest. So we have another guest on People Over Politics. I am proud to say we have another Prince Georgian here from gorgeous Prince George's County. You always hear me mention gorgeous Prince George's. Hey, Rushern, thanks for joining us today.
Warren, thanks for having me, and it's always good to be in the house with fellow Prince Georgians. And I love the title because part of our campaign, community over politics. So perfect show title.
Okay, and so Rushern, for people who don't know about you, tell them a little bit about you.
So I served in 8 years in the House of Delegates from Prince George's County. 4 of those years were on appropriations and 4 were on judiciary. And if you think about the issues we're facing now in this state, in this country, those 2 committees have tremendous power. Appropriations determine how much money the state sends back. And then I served for 8 years as county executive at a time when Prince George's County was going through a lot. Our county executive, former county executive, was on his way to jail. So was a councilwoman. Our homicide rates were up to the highest. We were last in job creation in the state. And we were the epicenter of the mortgage foreclosure crisis. And so all of those things were happening when I came in 2010. And after 8 years, I'm proud to say that we were able to turn the county around. If you drive through Prince George's County, if you were here in 2010 and you drive through the county now, it's a different place.
I agree.
We were able to lead the state in job creation 5 years in a row. We dropped our homicide rates to the lowest that they had seen in 30 years. When I left, I think 1 homicide too many, but we were at 68. And so we were able to turn around and improve our education system. So that experience is what propelled me to want to run for governor.
Well, I will say that I understand that the crime stats, and we're definitely not in a great place now with crime, as you probably know. But
yeah,
one of the things I would say that the education, we've had some highlights, but we've also had some down points where we've been in the media And I like to say, you know, fairly that I'm a product of Prince George's County Schools, you know, proud graduate, right? So I will say that there's a lot of beauty that will come out of Prince George's County Public Schools. And, you know, don't believe everything that you hear the media, because a lot of times they give you the negative spin, right?
That's
So I'll say that happens, but there are some truths to things that happen in this school system, right? So like, as governor, what do you think you can do to address Baltimore? Because Baltimore receives the most dollars. You know, Prince George's County is one of the biggest systems. Baltimore receives the most dollars, but it doesn't make it to the classroom. So how are we going to ensure that it makes it to the classroom?
Well, I think you just hit it right. I mean, and let me just talk about Prince George's County just for a second, because you're absolutely right. We have our challenges, but the only way you're going to deal with those challenges is to speak truth. You know, admit where you have issues and then try and solve them. You're not going to solve them all the way, you know, in one fell swoop, but you can make progress. We made progress. All of my children went to high school and went to school in Prince George's County public schools, from pre-K all the way up to all three graduated from Suitland High School. We had a wonderful education in the county, and we had some challenges. It's the same way in Baltimore City. So it's not just about the money, it's making sure the money actually goes to where it needs to go. And so whether it's Prince George's County or Baltimore City or Western Maryland, where we have issues, the money has to go actually impacting the classroom. So there as governor, there are a few things that I think we should do. One, certainly we know that we have to fully fund the current commission, but we have to go beyond that, because COVID has told us that many of our children are sitting at home without access to the internet. And so if we go through another lockdown, they're just locked out. And also, many of them don't have the resources or support at home that my kids got with my wife and I. And so since we know COVID, the good part about COVID is we know for a fact where those places are. And so we should be prepared as a state to begin immediately to target those areas where we know we are having
digital divide.
That's right.
Huge.
That's right. So target those areas right now where we have challenges, and prepare for it. And then, you know, we know that we're losing teachers, and not just teachers, but staff, you know, inside our schools, our bus drivers and folks like that. They're concerned. So we're going to have to incentivize, you know, our young teachers and veteran teachers to stay in the teaching field, to let them know we support them and appreciate them, not just compensate them, which we should, but also support them by continuing education, making quality of life decisions for them better. And we can do that with a combination of the state and the local jurisdiction. The final thing that I like to talk about is what we don't do a lot of, and we started to do, and that is dealing with both mental and behavioral health. You know, my partner, Nancy Navarro, started her career on the school board in Montgomery County. And so that's how she got involved in politics, you know, sending her children through the public school system there, which has some good schools and some challenging schools like everywhere else. But one of the things we both came to agree on is that having wellness centers in our school, having social workers and health departments in there to help with not just behavioral and mental health, but wellness for the family. Because our children are not coming in to the building and leaving the world behind. They're coming in with everything that they were going on. And it doesn't just mean they're coming from backgrounds where, you know, they have challenges. I know from my own experience, my wife was diagnosed with early onset dementia when I was county executive. And so my daughter, my baby, was still in high school. And so there were challenges at home for her to leave a home situation that was unstable, because she didn't know, you know, where, what situation my wife was going to be in. And then she had to go to school and pretend like none of that happened. Well, that's impossible. And so we should provide an avenue of help there. And so what I want to do is have a state superintendent of school that's going to be active and engaged at the local level with all 24 superintendents. I want a state school board that doesn't just come in when something's wrong, you know, like they're doing now in Prince George's County. They need to be a partner throughout. And so it's very important that in this current commission and in this funding, we provide the type of support to the systems that we need.
You brought up a lot of great points, especially the fact that we need, more mental health, in schools. I think that's huge. So just a couple questions while we're still focusing on schools, because schools is always a big talking point, and schools is always going to be important to the residents, right? Like, provides that social capital. So the question that I have is, when we're talking about putting more of these resources into schools, as the next governor, would you be supportive of reducing the amount of school resource officers in schools to allocate, this budget, to allocate monies to this budget for these services?
No, you know what I think we have to do? I think especially now, parents are afraid,
Sure.
with everything going on in not just in Maryland, but in the country. They're afraid of the safety of their children at school. So what I think we have to do is to
my question was, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the thought is, how many school resource officers have stopped an armed shooting? Because I understand where we are in this world, and the thought is like, we are nervous, but like, how many SROs have stopped school shootings?
Here's the thing. I think your question is a very valid one about how many have stopped it. But think about this from a parental perspective. I know for me, is that you need the resource officers there to coordinate what's going to happen if an incident like happened, or a fight like in Alexandria happened. So it's not removing the resources, the resource officers out of the school. You don't need armed. You don't need the police in there, but you need the resources there. But I think, to your point, is we should augment what we're doing. That should not be the focal point of our education system. We should put more resources in our health and mental health at our school levels, all the way through, so that we can actually deal with problems early on. The resources officers are there to understand what's going on as at a school-wide system. And here's a quick example. So what we did when I was county executive was have the chief of the school resources officers would sit in on our crime briefing, so that they would understand what are the natures of what's going on throughout the county, so that we can make sure that if there are heightened areas around the schools, that they could be aware of that we're seeing carjackings in this area, or something, or robberies in this area. So they just heighten to be aware that people are entering the school, not necessarily what's going on inside the four walls. So I think we can do that.
Okay, I mean, hey, that's fair, and I just wanted to make sure, because the thought is like, the perception is, if we have these armed officers or SROs, that we will be safer, and that but the thought is like, the reason I say perception is because a lot of times that's just that just comforts us to think that that they would be there and everything like that. And I guess another point is, it's been a very contentious issue. Are we going to be for all elected school board? I think I asked a lot of these candidates that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, my philosophy always was that local jurisdictions should determine how they want to proceed. I think the decision that the county executive made here to go back to an all elected school board is the right decision for Prince George's County.
But that was late in the game. That was an early campaign promise. like come on, we know it's election season. We've been around long enough.
Yeah. I definitely, the thing that I've always tried to do is to be straightforward and honest with what I thought we should do, whether people liked it or disliked it, but at least they could react to it. And so as governor, one of the things that I know, both, having served at the local level, is that it really should be the choice of the local jurisdiction what type of governance structure there is. No matter what type of governance structure you take, Anne Arundel County, for example, theirs is, an appointed system. They've made some tweaks to it. Baltimore County is a hybrid of elected and appointed. But whatever the governance structure is, the main thing is to make sure that the resources that we're spending at the local level and at the state level are actually impacting the classroom and are not being hampered because of, politics that are going on at the school board level. And that's where the school,
Yes, sir.
that's why you have a state school board, which we rarely talk about. And that's why you have a state superintendent. Their job is to monitor these things, not to set the governance structure, but to make sure that the resources are getting actually impacting the classroom and they're making a difference. And if they're not, how do we change it?
I understand, and I'm sure that the next governor is going to be tasked with figuring out how to address things that happen in Prince George's and Baltimore City. It's no, I don't think it's by any fault that we are, of course, the Black county, and we receive a lot of negative attention. But
Right.
I will say that one of the other questions I have, and I've asked the governor, some of the governor candidates, is will the next governor be supportive of student school board member having voting rights? And the reason I ask is because I think it's critical, because I think that these are the cream of the crop young folks that I've seen as student school board members, especially from my time in Prince George's County. I know you've known probably several of the student school board members, and they're cream of the crop. So these are people who were elected by their peers, and I think they can make good decisions. So I just wanted to hear your point of view, because I've asked that question to most of the candidates by now.
Yes. No, I think there is, I think they should vote on everything. The one exception that I think that I would look at it wouldn't be capital. I know they can't vote on capital projects, which I think is crazy because they're the ones who are in the schools themselves. I mean, they know.
Yes.
They know better than anybody else. I told the story the other day how I wanted to build a new Suitland High School, and I was telling my daughter about it, and she had her own ideas. In fact, all my kids had ideas of what their former high school should look like and what was working, wasn't working. So I think that's one.
Yes.
Where you get into an issue, and then it will be, is around personnel, because that's the one area where I think would cause some trepidation, both from a legal standpoint and from others. So I think that's the only area when you're dealing with personnel issues, just how far you can go. But I do think we should open it up. I think they bring that's why we have them on the school board in the first place, to bring that perspective of someone actually going through the policies that we're implementing.
I mean, I appreciate you saying that. I very much do, because I think I was talking to a delegate candidate, and she was like, "Yeah,
advocacy and using their voice again."
Please.
Oh, okay. I apologize. So the connection got a little muffled there.
Mm-hmm.
But what I was saying was I spoke to a delegate candidate about the same topic, and her thought process was giving them their voice, allowing them to voice their opinion and taking it into consideration, but not necessarily allowing them to vote because they haven't experienced enough. They're not old enough, essentially. And what I kind of told her is, what makes older voters or older people better decision makers, right? Like I really couldn't answer that. So,
No, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, like I said, the only issue I can see that you have to be careful about, and it's a legal one, it's not really, is personnel.
That makes sense.
Around personnel issues, and that protects them too, because you don't want somebody in high school being sued, and named in a suit in a personnel issue. And so, but that's the only area I would see, is that you would have to navigate around, and there are ways to do that. But certainly, you want that voice there.
Agreed. And I think that you put that into perspective. From a legal perspective, I didn't think about the personnel, but outside of that, I think that they should. I think that they should.
Hello.
Yeah. Definitely, especially on everything. I mean, they're seeing it in real time. They're actually, going through these policies.
We're trying to find our local number because we kind of lost.
So the question that I was going to ask you was, I know that you said you would move your office to Baltimore. I've seen, hearing from a Baltimore resident, he appreciates that.
Yeah,
he appreciates that, and I'm sure a lot of other people do. But what would you do to address crime? Because I know that your ad got a lot of attention, but I'm just trying to understand, because he also said he wants to reimagine, the relationship between the police, and its citizens. So, I just want to hear more poignantly what some of those things you might do, when elected governor.
Right. So here's the reason I said, when not in session, we have a 90-day session in Annapolis where all the legislators are there. But when the 90-day session is over, there's no reason for the governor to have to stay in Annapolis. If the most critical issue facing the state is what's going on in our number one city, which is Baltimore City, why you already have a governor's office there. There's a governor's office in Baltimore, but it's not being used by Hogan because he doesn't want to have to deal with the issues that are going on there, as if they're living in, as if they're not Maryland citizens. So my perspective is move the office there so that you can focus the attention on what's going on in Baltimore City. And you can offer, more help to the mayor, the council, and the state's attorneys to deal with the problems. So part of it is, and I said I would declare a state of emergency. And I know people looked at that and said, a state of emergency. I was like, yeah, if you had over the past 8 years, 2,000 mostly young African-American men killed in the streets of Baltimore and nobody says anything, nobody does anything. If you had 300 homicides of mostly African-American men last year, and we treat it as if it's just the city's problem. It's not. When we have homicides in Prince George's County, they're a state problem. And so for me, the way you do it is you have to have the resources. No jurisdiction has enough money to deal with its problems itself. Baltimore City certainly doesn't. And so here are the things that I would do with the state of emergency. One, by declaring the state of emergency, just like we do when there's a snowstorm or a flood, it means it opens up more resources from the state, not just police, but certainly, that's part of it. So what I would do is, one, you already have, Maryland state troopers in Baltimore City already. Why not have those troopers in the downtown area, in that area, doing traffic stops, so that then the police of Baltimore can actually do community patrolling? The other thing is, more resources for the state's attorney's office. The one thing I criticize the governor is, saying I'm going to take money away from the state's attorney's office to teach her a lesson. Well, that's not teaching her a lesson. That means that you don't have crimes that should be prosecuted solved. So we would put more resources in there. But the other things that it would open up for the city is more mental health and behavioral health, more health department work in the city to help with our schools, to help with residents, more job training, focusing on making sure that we actually have a job training program for young people to go into these areas. And then, more treatment for those who are addicted to drugs. And so it opens up everything within the state to help. And that's the difference between just treating it as, hey, if they ask me for more resources, I'll give them to them. And the difference between a state of emergency where it automatically means every department, whether it's the Department of Commerce, which has a $100 million development incentive fund that can be used to help small businesses, or whether it's the health department or transportation to make sure our folks can get back and forth to the job centers, but also deal with infrastructure issues. It opens all those things up. That's why the state of emergency.
Okay. And I do better understand that. And one of the things that I think to segue when we're talking about, where we are with crime, and I would believe you're a man who believes in second chances, right?
Very much so.
So the question that I posed to a lot of governor candidates was, definitely well within their purview, was I said, as the next governor, would you be an advocate for basically restoring the rights, not only of, ex-felons, because that's already been restored since 2016, but people who are currently incarcerated and convicted, not awaiting trial. And my reason being,
here's the thing, those who are, awaiting trial and awaiting sentences haven't lost their constitutional right to vote. I mean, you don't lose that until you're convicted. Certainly, I'm for immediately once somebody has served their time and their sentence that they get their voting rights back. But the other part about it is, and this is something that I did as an executive, is you start working with returning citizens, is what I call them, before they actually return to our neighborhoods. The one thing we do know is where most of them are coming back. So why don't we start working with them at the local level while they're either in state jail or if they're in our local jail. We did this in our local jail in Prince George's County, in our correctional facility, where we started working with and integrating those citizens back into the Maine. The other thing we did was we put together in Suitland a one-stop shop, what I call that. And that is for returning citizens, they can go to one place where they can get all the information on how to get an ID, what the transportation system looks like, depending on how long you've been away, it's completely changed. Where you can get, your driver's license, how you can get a driver's license, where you can find apartments that will actually rent to folks who've been formerly incarcerated, how you register to vote, how you get dental health. So in this one facility is a health clinic, a workforce development center, a housing referral center. All of those things are there to make sure that these folks can start their lives. But the whole idea was really to start working with them before they actually get out, before they return. We did it at the local level. I want to see more of that at the state level, because the idea is, how do we keep these folks from recidivizing? This is something I worked on as a delegate on judiciary, and as an executive, I got a chance to try and put it into action. And I told my middle daughter, who's a lawyer, who just came out of law school, that she and I are going to work on returning citizens' rights together once I've finished this whole politics things.
Hey, I love to hear it. And so just so I'm clear, you mentioned a lot of great things in there. So I'm clear that we have an advocate for convicted people.
Yes, so one of the things I'm most proud of under my legislative career is that, and this was before you were born, back in the 90s, when 1995,
I was five.
yeah,
Man.
there were very few of us who were actually taking on the cause of lifers in prison. And so I was one of those folks that, advocated for us looking at sentences against people given a life sentence, whether in fact that should be changed and have the opportunity for parole. But also working for better conditions, whether it's, because a lot of the lifers in there were doing the hard work of teaching the young people coming in on how not to come back, how to get their education. And so I was very proud of the fact that I went to the prison and received an award from them from working with, and actually the group was Moms for Lifers award, because, as I mean, these are Black and brown people who are in these situations. And so a lot of them, we could help and make sure they're doing productive things behind the bars. And we want to make sure. And this also, this is a family thing. This is what my wife spent her life, working on the abolition of the death penalty and working with people who were convicted, some wrongfully convicted and others rightfully convicted. But her notion was that, you're not the sum of the worst thing that you did.
Agreed.
So this is something we're dedicated. So yes, we're on that side.
Well, no, I mean, and the reason I asked is right because I bluntly asked the candidate, because he mentioned the great things, like he wants to put college credits back into school. He wants to make sure that the libraries are full. He wants to make sure that the wraparound services exist, after they return, so they could be reintegrated successfully back into society. But the question that I posed to him was like, but why was their votes taken away? Just make that clear, right? And I was saying, like the thought is constitutionally, I don't believe they should be taken away. especially, given the fact that the 13th Amendment exists, and the fact that this, I believe, is discriminatory towards people incarcerated. But as I mentioned to him, I was like, these are we receive census money for these individuals. So if they don't get a vote, you shouldn't receive census money. And that was my thought, right? That was my thought.
You might be ready to go and argue before the Supreme Court on that. That's a pretty good. I've never heard that one connected together, but that's a pretty good issue. Let me just throw this out real quick. I know we're going to run out, but one of the things that I saw as a delegate, it was just demoralizing to witness, is we used to have a robust education system within our prison population, our correction system.
Yes.
In the 90s, because of the conservatism, both in the Democratic Party and throughout the state, they actually took the education system out of our corrections, and they moved it where the Department of Education used to be connected to our Department of Corrections, so that when you came in, you found out a person was at a 4th grade reading level. We didn't just leave them that way when they were incarcerated. We helped them. We helped them out to get their GED, but also their college credits. They were actually taking college credits there for free, and people found it offensive. But it's so backwards, because if we actually while we have them as a captive audience, if we make them, better educated, skills, that when they get out, they're not going to come back. They're going to go into a place where they can actually work. And so we were backwards in the 90s, and we're paying for it now.
I mean, no, I agree with you. I agree with you. And you brought up some real great points. And one of the very last things I wanted to ask you was, as the next governor, of course, we have to make it through the general election. We have had a lot of great Democrats go through the primary, so how are we going to win this general? We've run what, 1 in 20 years?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, how are we going to win this general? I know that we got a lot of Democratic candidates,
right?
A lot of great ones.
Yeah, I think that the best way to win when you get to the general election, it's going to be about experience, that actually governing experience. If you think about the 2 Democrats that have won in the past, 20 years, they've both been executives at the local level. You got Paris Glendening, who was county executive in Prince George's County, and you have Martin O'Malley, who was mayor of Baltimore City. Because once you get to the general election, we're going to have a very, competitive opponent if Kelly Schultz wins. And people are going to look for experience. Can you actually do the job here in Maryland? What do you know about running, creating jobs in Maryland? What do you know about actually policing? We talk about policing. Everybody has an idea. But there's only one of us in the race that's actually had to control the police department, So when you talk about these, if you're talking about them, I know what it's like to deal with it for 8 years. When we talk about job creations, there's only one candidate, that has actually created jobs in Maryland from the government level. And I think, and done it right. I think people are going to look at not only what you're saying, what you believe, but what you can get done. Because if you can't convince those, and they are Democrats, conservative Democrats, whether they're on the Eastern Shore or right here in Prince George's County, then that's how we end up losing. If you think about this, to close with this, Larry Hogan in the last election got almost 40% of the vote in Montgomery County. 40%, a Republican. And it was over one issue. The Democratic candidate had no experience in actually running a government. So even people in Montgomery County that votes Democratic down the line, they don't have a Republican legislator, voted for Larry Hogan because he had the experience. And I think that's the difference it makes, is having the experience of running a government.
I do believe that experience matters and people feel comfortable, with this experience. But, we have Prince George's for Hogan, right? So, it not only happened, you know, Montgomery County, we had it right there in gorgeous Prince George's. And I think that one of the things is a downside, since we have so many candidates, there's always this like fake unity that happens after, right? So like a lot of people's wounds are not healed yet, and you know, they don't want to be as active. But the thought is like, you know, the truth of the matter is we need all boots on the ground, you know, after the general, no matter who the candidate is. But sometimes, you know, people come around later, right? People and sometimes it's too late for that support at that time. But you bring up some very great
He
points.
cut off, but I will say this. Thanks for having me on the show. I appreciate it, and best of luck out there. Thanks.